Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all here. Looks like we've got a pretty active chat going on right now, so that's pretty fun. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to this week's live stream, and I want to, again, I'm curious to know where you're all coming from, so why don't you go ahead and say hi in the chat, say good morning, and let me know where you're joining from, and I will be able to pop open a map here in a second, and see where you're all joining from. We got people from all over the place right now joining. This is awesome. Hi, Jonas from Germany. Hi, Jason from London, UK. Hey, Whirly Freak, good to see you. Stefan from Germany. Got Dave from Baltimore. Drew from Colorado. Allan from India. Some folks from Canada here. This is fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you all for joining. And today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking about your questions about the ATEM Mini. We're going to go through all sorts of stuff. I see there's a bunch of questions already in the chat, which is always a great way to start things off. And it looks like we got a few more people here from India and Hong Kong, so that's awesome. So yeah, we got a lot of questions in the chat already, which is a great start. And I am going to pull up the questions and start going through them. I do want to remind you that if you do have a question for me, because the chat tends to be kind of busy, if you do have a question that you want me to answer specifically, please make sure to mention my full name, just at Aaron Parecki, like people are doing in there, and that will make sure that it pops out in orange to me. I also want to mention that, again, just want to acknowledge there's a lot of terrible things going on in the world right now, and the one way that I'm hoping to do a little bit to help out is donate all the super chats again. So if you do super chat, again, I really appreciate it, but I'm not the one that needs that money right now. There's a lot of people who need that money a lot more than me. So I'm going to be donating all of those, and I'm going to be matching those donations as well. So those will be, it's a great way to, contribute to these organizations down that I've got linked down below. So with that, let's jump into the questions, and let me queue up my question machine over here. You might notice that I'm in a different spot right now compared to my normal studio. I'm actually above the studio right now, so it's down there, and it's getting worked on. I'm having some work done, and going to actually finally finish the walls up, put a new floor in, and it's going to be done, and I'll be able to actually settle in. I've been kind of, roughly, loosely using it and hanging stuff on the walls awkwardly and not really settling into it because I didn't want to mount stuff on the walls when I knew I was going to have to tear it all out again to finish painting the walls. So that is, so I'm up above it right now. My background is still going to color change based on the super chats, but it's a little bit less strong since I'm actually in full daylight up here. The questions, before we get to the questions, I also want to mention a little bit about my setup here. I've got things a little bit different up here, although it's mostly the same as you've seen before. So if I show you my desk here, this is what I'm working with. Sorry about the disaster back there. Just ignore that. That's there's my other table is on its side because there's no space up here. But this is the same desk. I just rebuilt it all up here with this nice pole. It wasn't that bad to tear it all down. But one of the things I did do differently this week is I did actually start setting up this stream deck with some of my macros. And I mentioned that last week I mentioned that I wanted to be able to switch both, run a macro on the main ATEM Mini and then also do something on the second ATEM Mini. And that's why you were seeing some of the load up chat and forget to switch the output of the other ATEM Mini because of the way I've got things wired in here. So I've now got buttons for that, which should hopefully work. So with any luck, I'll be able to do this and then switch to the chat, which is running through the second Mini, which means I need to change what HDMI output that's showing. But I can also then show what I'm doing on the computer with the multi-view of the ATEM Mini. Anyway, you should see fewer glitches this time. We'll see how it goes. So, yeah. Oh, great. YouTube is complaining that I am giving them too much data now. So maybe I shouldn't try to stream at 25 megabits a second. Oh, well. Too bad for you, YouTube. Deal with it. So yeah, there's, let me go through a couple of the questions that I see up at the top here. From Hisham, what's the best setup to truly have the ATEM Mini Pro as a pro switching and streaming, including other software or hardware add-ons that can be added? So, the ATEM Mini Pro by itself does, in fact, quite a lot of stuff. I think to really like round that out and make it a pro or fully featured solution, you're going to need an external monitor for the multi-view, like I've got on this desk, some sort of control surface. So I've talked about this in the past, this iPad app, Strata Macros. I like this a lot. It only does macros. So like it can only control one ATEM and it can only run macros. It can't do any of the other stuff. So you have to make a macro to change a camera angle, for example. Or you use the Stream Deck, which I can't point the camera at it. The Stream Deck is a very, very different way of doing it. The Stream Deck buttons can be programmed to do all sorts of things. I can actually show you the what I've got in my Stream Deck config. Let me see if I can. This should do it. Yes, that was the first test of what I'm about to show you, and it switched to my camera angle up in the corner here, and you didn't see like a flicker, and I didn't forget to push a button. So what I've actually done is I've actually set up both ATEMs being controlled by Companion here. So this software is running on my laptop. This is why I don't like the Stream Deck solution as much as the Strata solution, but it is more powerful. So this is running on my computer. The Stream Deck is plugged in via USB, and then it's talking to both ATEMs. So I've got it controlling both, which means I can then go make buttons like this one, which is the one I just pressed, which does now two things. On the secondary ATEM, it changes the HDMI output to the camera pass-through instead of multi-view. And then it runs the macro on my main ATEM, which sets up this picture-in-picture scaling. So if I, for example, change the output of the secondary ATEM by just pushing the video out on the device itself, you see I can change to multi-view, I can change it to program out, I can change it to any of the other sources like my secondary camera. So I needed to have this action button here run, set it to camera 1 so that you see my face and not the multi-view. So that's what I've been doing now is I've been setting up these buttons to now do things on both ATEMs. So for example, show chat similarly sets the aux output to the computer pass-through, which my other laptop on the desk is doing. And then it runs the macro, which does, again, sets up the keyer and brings it to the front. So now I can, switch between that view and that view, which is actually running in two different ATEMs. So yeah, that's a little more than that question, I guess. But the control surface is the thing that's really, really going to make that powerful. So being able to use macros and use buttons, physical buttons to control the macros. And yeah, I think that's like doing that. It'll take a while to get used to it and like get things set up and get familiar with how to build these things. But that really will like take this to the next level. All right. Next, let's take a look at the chat. How are we doing? Make sure I'm not messing anything up on the chat. And okay, yeah, YouTube is still complaining about my bitrate, that it's too high, but I'm not hearing any complaints from you all watching, so I'm just gonna roll with it. There's a question here about from Samuel. What's the best way to monitor sound coming from the ATEM Mini? Yeah, of course, one of the drawbacks of this is that there is no headphone jack on the device itself. Which means you need to get the sound out of the HDMI port. And that's probably the easiest way to do it. And the easiest way to do that is to just run sound out of the monitor that you're using. So for example, on my desk, I've got this I've got this 24-inch monitor. It's 1920 1080. So I've got my computer plugged into this one. I've got the ATEM plugged into this one. And then there's a headphone jack on this monitor. And I've got my headphones down here on a little hook, so I can then just, hear what I'm doing. It's, of course, got a little bit of the delay from out of the camera, so I can't listen to it while I'm actually talking. But I can at least then monitor it to make sure it's sounding reasonable. I think that is the easiest way to do it. I don't really know why the video assist headphone port would be very low. Like, there is a volume control on that device, so not really sure what to say about that. But generally, like, I haven't had any problem doing it with the video assist or a monitor like this. All right, scrolling through the chat here. Oh, it does that thing where it skips around. All right. Oh, Jonas says, you should add timestamps to the final video with a question so you can skip through. I did do that in the last one, actually. And it does the little thing where it breaks up the timeline, like the play bar now, too. So it's super easy to, like, scroll around on the video. I will try to do that again here. It's a lot of work. Let me just say that. It actually helps if I keep the question on the screen, though, so I know what I'm talking about when I'm reading it back. Stefan says, when I use Photoshop with a picture with a logo as Luma key, it's crisp and clear. Same file used as Chroma key becomes unsharp and with strange colors. I'd like to use the key button. So yeah, Chroma keying works very, very differently from Luma keying, and it's tricky to get it to work well. I've also noticed that, like, harsh edges are a bit of a trick to key out with the Chroma keyer. I think because the Chroma keyer is assuming you're going to be keying out like a video image, which doesn't have straight, sharp edges. I've noticed that too, and that's why I'm using Luma key to do this chat, for example, because I wasn't getting good results Chroma keying it. But then, yeah, the key button on the device, like, it's kind of like a preset, and it means that it like only does one or two things in it, so that's why I mentioned the control surface is, I think, the best solution there, because the buttons on the device itself, while it's nice that there are buttons, they are very limited. And I've had much better luck using an external control surface to press those, to control things and run macros that bring up the keyer. Also because I tend to want to, I'm right now, you're seeing this Luma keyed out, but as soon as I switch to a different camera angle, I might need to use that keyer for something else. And then all my settings change. So the macros just mean that it just super quickly switches to the right settings. And that's a lot more powerful than just using the button on the top. Michael says, how can I play video clips using the ATEM Mini Pro? I recently switched from using Switcher Studio. I've never used Switcher Studio. I don't know what that is. But the ATEM Mini Pro does not have any sort of video player built in. Neither does the next model up, the Television Studio, for $1,000. It isn't until the very high-end ATEMs that actually have the ability to play back video clips. And even then, it's kind of limited to, like, a very short amount of frames. It's really meant for doing animated transitions and, like, logos and things like that. And that is, it's not really meant to be like a video player. So if you want to play actual video clips, then your best bet is to use a totally separate device outside of the ATEM Mini. Like, there's a whole bunch of options. I've talked about this one before. So this is the Hyperdeck Studio Mini, and this is takes little SD cards, and then it can you load up your clips onto this. This can be controlled by the ATEM Mini directly. And I actually went through that in a previous live stream and talked about setting it up, and that works really well. It is very expensive. There's a couple other options. There's I don't think I have it on the desk. I do. It's this one. I talked about this, I think, last time. It's called the Mica Spec, and I'll drop a link to that again. But that is a much cheaper device, but it can't be controlled by the network or anything really. It's just like an infrared remote, so it's kind of silly. So let me just drop a link to the Mica Spec and drop a link to the Hyperdeck Studio Mini into the chat. So take a look at those. you know, you can also use a computer running VLC or any other video playback software, again, with the limitations that it won't be able to be controlled by the ATEM Mini, but you could script it some other way, like using Companion. So lots of options there. Adam says, has anybody figured out an automated way to load the media slots with a macro or at boot up? So yeah, the other thing that I'm really annoyed about is that they didn't make the media pool save on reboot. So all the graphics are lost when you reboot the device. But the good news is it's actually really easy to deal with that. You do have to have a computer nearby. So if I go, if I'm in the ATEM switcher here, let me make it a little bigger. The easiest way to do this, like I've got my media in here. If you just go to like save as, it will save like an XML file with all your settings and all of the images out, and then you can just restore that XML file. And then that, so here's all the graphics that are in all my different settings, my different combinations of shows. So then this loads in those graphics and it just brings them all back, which is really great because I switch between doing a bunch of different shows with very different graphics in them. So I can quickly load up, I can just very quickly load up the graphics for the right show in the right spots, along with all the macros for that particular show. So that ends up being a pretty good way to do it. Yeah, and that's the same question here. Tim says, looking forward to hearing the garbage truck again this week. We'll see. There was a different truck, but a very large truck rode by just before we started. So I lucked out on that one. Cool. And Vincent, we talked about this in the beginning. All right. So Allan says, using just the ATEM Mini Pro without Ethernet USB, what's the best way to have a logo constantly through the stream with occasional lower thirds from an HDMI input? So if you're bringing in lower thirds from an HDMI input, like from a separate computer or other device, that means that your downstream keyer is freed up. So there's two different ways to add graphics. Let me actually do this in the test ATEM. So let me go back to this. I'm gonna go connect to my secondary ATEM here, since I don't mind messing that one up, and that'll let me, yeah, okay. So here's a secondary ATEM, and I just have to make sure to not change the video out so you can see me. But this is like, here's graphics in the media pool, right? I can make a logo. Let me see if I have one ready. I should just make a logo. Okay, I'm gonna have to make one. So here in Photoshop, let me just go make a new 1920 1080, and I'm gonna get rid of the background, and then I'll drop in like what should we do? How about just my regular how about the little live logo? That's cute. Where did that go? YouTube live SVG? Yeah, no. Well, okay, I'll just use my full graphic. Just make it really small. So I'm gonna grab this, copy it into this document, and I'll just make it really small, like it's a little corner logo. This is not a good logo, but you get the idea. So you'd have something in the corner like this. I will export this out of Photoshop into the switcher and go to my test one, corner logo, save it in slot 4, pre-multiply alpha, and we should see it now in, yeah, there it is. So you load that into the media player, go into your switcher, and then in the downstream keyer, make sure it's set to media player and key, and then it's pre-multiplied. So then we just bring that on the air, and let's see. I'm going to show you the multi-view of the test ATEM up in the corner. We'll just go to program out. So you can see that this is now I'm able to toggle this on and off, program out of the ATEM. So then your lower thirds can be coming in on a separate input. So back to the multi-view. For example, the chat. I've got the chat kind of as like a lower third, and it has nothing to do with the downstream keyer. So if I run, how do I do this? I have to use the chat macro is on the other ATEM. So yeah, upstream keyer, I would do Luma key from my computer input, mask pre-multiply key, and that might do it. Okay, yeah, it's up in the corner. So that's here. Now it's bigger, you can see it. So I want to flying key, we'll do regular size, position it down there, get the X back to the center. This is not pre-multiplied, so I have to get these in the right spot to make that work. And about there. And yeah, cool. Oh, hey, thanks for the super chat. I just saw my lights turn green. But yeah, so now I'm able to use the upstream keyer to get the lower third in there, and the downstream keyer to get the logo, which will just stay on all the time if you just leave this here. So hopefully that answers that. That was Allan's question. Let me go grab that super chat down here from Tim. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for your contribution. And again, just a reminder for any of you who are just joining, I'm going to be donating all of the super chat revenue and matching it myself to all these organizations below. So feel free to chip in. And thanks for that, Tim. All right, let me keep going through this chat here. So, and again, if you want to ask me a question, make sure you mention @Aaron Parecki, my full name in there, because it shows up nice and bright when you do that. Todd says, hi, I use the ATEM Mini with Companion and Stream Deck. It works great. Is there a way to do Chroma Key and picture-in-picture at the same time? So not really. Yeah, and that's because, again, there's only one upstream keyer. What we were looking at just a second ago is the setting up the Chroma, or the picture-in-picture for the chat plus the logo. The limit is, if I go back to the software, you'll see, let me get that out of the way. There we go. So the limit is that there is only one upstream keyer, and it can do any of these, but only one of them and not more than one of them. The downstream keyer, you can use that at the same time, so you can still overlay graphics on top, but the downstream keyer does not have a way to scale. So you can't do picture-in-picture with downstream keyer. You can only, do, it does do Luma key, and you can mask it. So you can crop, and you can take out the blacks. But you can't shrink it, and you can't do chroma keying with downstream keyer. So yeah, if you do need to do specifically the chroma key and picture-in-picture, you need to use 2 ATEM Minis or get a bigger ATEM, which has 2 upstream keyers. Like the Television Studio has 2 upstream keyers. I think it has 2 downstream keyers also. So then you can do 2 of those at a time. Peter says, any chance of getting 4 cameras at once in a split screen like Zoom? No, not at all. Not at all. So the best you can do is you can, with one ATEM, you can sit over here on the side of your shot and then use the upstream keyer to position and crop another video feed over it and set them like next to here. If you have 2 of them, you can chain them and start doing more complicated stuff, and then you can position both. And I actually walked through that in, I don't remember which live stream it was. I think it may have been 2 weeks ago. If somebody remembers, let me know. But I actually walked through all of the steps to do a side-by-side view of 2 video feeds, and it was complicated. It was definitely a lot, and I can't say I would recommend doing that. If you do want like a 4-up view, you won't be able to do that with the ATEM hardware until the really expensive ones, they call it super source. And that is, that's where you're able to then position and scale multiple inputs over other graphics and other inputs. Yeah, so unfortunately, this is not the thing for that. Michael says, what do you recommend for live streaming at remote locations for connectivity? So the best way to, like, there's just like a spectrum or like a hierarchy, right? Like tiered. So hardwire into the venue's internet if you can. That's going to be the best. Get a hard line, bring your own little network switch or router so you can plug multiple things into it, but get a wired connection from the venue. If that doesn't work, if you can't do that, you probably don't want to share the Wi-Fi with like the event. So see if you can get a dedicated Wi-Fi access point from the venue. Depending on the venue, they'll be able to do that. Sometimes they can't. And then if you can't do that, you're going to have to bring your own. And like cell phones are fast enough now that you can absolutely stream over a cell phone connection. To make sure you're in a good reception area. You could even bring two and bond them together. I did not, in fact, do any research on that after last week, but I'm meaning to figure out a good solution for tying two network connections together when they are not necessarily when you're not using an encoder device that does that built in. So, but yeah, I've streamed stuff from my phone before. It works fine, and but yeah, building Ethernet is gonna be the best. Allan, thank you for the super chat again. And there was a comment in there, but it was after. So yeah, thank you very much. Oh, and Rick says, thank you for the super chat again. And just a reminder, I'm donating all the super chats and matching those donations myself to these organizations below. Rick says, you mentioned a few weeks ago that you and Rick B, we're going to incorporate you mean John B. We're going to incorporate the chat bar function into H2R Graphics. Any updates? Yes, there is in fact an update, and I have not played with it yet. So John from Here to Record has an app called H2R Graphics. And let me just pull that up on my screen so you can see it. This is the website for it, heretorecord.com/graphics. Let me just drop that into the chat. Where is that? Here. And this is, you can download this right now and use it. And it does like tickers and lower thirds and overlays all on top of like a green screen or a black background, so you can key it out from one of your inputs. Like this is what it does. It opens up a little window that you can then bring in as one of your inputs. It works great. And he is adding, probably not mentioned on this page yet, but he's adding the YouTube comments into it. It looks very similar to what I'm doing here, but it's actually using like the API properly instead of this weird hack where I'm just restyling the chat website. And that is, he now has in fact launched the beta. And if you're interested, let me see. The best way to do that is to go and jump into his Discord server. So let me actually just drop in a link to his video where he talks about it and demos it. Because then, yeah, you can grab a link to his Discord here. So this is a video from him where he's demoing the YouTube chat feature, and it is now in fact in beta, and you can download it and try it out. So go into the Discord and go find it that way. But it is, yeah, it's cool. Hisham says the echo came back. What echo? Am I sounding terrible? No, everything's fine. I don't know what echo. Let me know what echo you mean. All right. Jonas says you could log timestamps every time you show a new comment. That would be a pretty cool thing to be able to do. Somehow sync up when I tap a button to show a chat, then log that timestamp. Not quite sure how I'd rig that up, but yeah, I like that idea. Cool. People are saying it sounds okay. Yeah, if you have two browser windows open, that would be an echo. I'm also, like, again, not in a sound treated room. This is probably better than last time, because last time I was just in a rectangle with flat walls. At least there's like curtains on the walls and uneven surfaces to break things up. So it's probably a little bit better than last week, but again, this is not a sound treated room. So eventually I'll be back downstairs and put actual soundproofing and stuff on the walls. So yep, cool. Sebastian says, using one ATEM Mini Pro with 4 cameras, looking for a way to have 2 graphic logos permanently, 2 different corners, and a lower third from time to time, in addition, which I can fade in and out. This is not really going to work for you here. So the reason is because while there is an upstream keyer and a downstream keyer, so you can insert graphics in 2 different parts on the stack, there's only one media player. So you can only have one graphic loaded in that's from the ATEM Mini itself. So if you're using your 4 HDMI inputs for cameras, then the only other way to get a video source in is through the media player, a still image, and you can only have one of those. So you can either use it for your logos in the corners, or you can use it for your lower third, but not both at the same time because there's only one media player. You'd have to use, so like, I'm able to show the chat and overlay graphics because the chat's coming in via HDMI, right? So again, you're kind of pushing the limits of the ATEM Mini line here by doing that. And if you do need more inputs or more media players, you might be better off looking at the higher end ATEMs because they are really meant for doing more fancier stuff like that. Peter says, any chance of running 2 ATEM Minis? One HDMI out to the input of the other. And yes, in fact, that is exactly what I'm doing here. So I don't think my camera is in a good spot to be able to show. Sure it is. Why not? What could go wrong? So this is what I'm looking at. Yeah, everything's fine. And let me tweak the exposure here, wrong way. There we go. So what you're looking at here is, this is the main one that's doing the streaming. You can see it's on air. And then this one is plugged into the other. And then I've actually got HDMI splitters for my cameras. So I wanted to be able to show like this camera angle in both ATEM Minis. So I'm actually running the same signal into both ATEM Minis. And then the other inputs are like this one, input 3 is actually my laptop. And then my other laptop's plugged into this ATEM Mini. So I'm not using like, you know, that many different, I'm not using that many of the 7 inputs to their full ability, but it does mean I can do things like show you, it does mean I can show you like the multi-view. So this is my multi-view screen. It means I can show you multi-view of the ATEM itself. So if I go over to that, now you're looking at the multi-view of the secondary ATEM, or I can switch back to the camera of that. But yeah, so here you can you see it? I can't tell if you can see it. Let's see. No, you want to, if you're looking at, this is the multi-view of the main ATEM. You can see I've got my main camera feed running in here, but it's also running into the input 1 of the secondary ATEM, which you can kind of see in the corner here. So anyway, that's what I've been doing for this because I want to be able to demonstrate stuff on the ATEMs, and I don't want to mess with my live ATEM, which I'm using to do things like showing the chat. So it does work well. Oh, and I just got it down to my other chat messages. Okay. I saw some follow-up questions on this. Oh yeah, the HDMI splitters that I'm using. They are, did I think ahead enough to grab a link to those? No, I did not think to grab a link. Let me grab that really quick. I like these ones because they're so small and they're USB powered. And USB power means I can run them off of one of those like 5-port USB charging bricks. So these are the ones. These are actually the ones I used in my video before the ATEM Mini Pro launched of adding multi-view to the regular ATEM Mini by doing it all outside the ATEM Mini. It was ridiculous. But yeah, those are the splitters I use for that. Cool. Forrest says, how would you present slides? So I do this all the time because I mainly do like trainings, online trainings and stuff where I'm going through a slide deck. Oh, hey, Photo Joseph. Photo Joseph says, oh, hi. I just saw that on my other window. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. One of these days, I'm going to get you trying out this chat feature. Yeah, so with the slides, running it out of the computer into one of the HDMI inputs is totally doable. And then you can do picture-in-picture to put yourself over the slides. It works great. I will say the one thing that's been extremely frustrating over the last several months is that all of the video platforms like Zoom and Skype and Hangouts or whatever they're calling it now and Microsoft Teams, they're all extremely overloaded and just flooded with traffic right now. And what they're doing is they're severely downscaling and compressing video feeds to make up for it, so they can pack more into it, into their systems. And by doing that, if you're showing slides with like text, it ends up looking very, very blurry. And it has not been a good experience for people at the other end of that over the last several months. So what I've actually been doing lately is I've switched to actually using the proper screen share function built into Zoom or whatever it is, because that feed they compress differently. That feed they compress expecting it to be crisp text and not moving very often. So they're able to go on the other end of the compression and, compress the movement or avoid movement. So if you try to play a video over screen sharing, like it's going to be 3 frames a second because they're expecting it to be slides that don't change very often. And if you share slides over the video camera, they expect it to be a video feed, so they shrink it down because you can actually still understand somebody just fine if they're only 320 pixels tall, but you just can't read the text. So if you're not live broadcasting or like live chatting in like a Zoom environment, the ATEM Mini itself has no problem dealing with compressing line art and text and stuff, as long as the destination you're pushing to isn't going to then scrunch it down. So like, for example, this chat message on the screen, it probably looks fine to you. I'm hoping it does, because YouTube can handle this bit rate and resolution just fine. So, yep, hopefully that helps. Serge says, for lower thirds, can I split the signal into 2 ATEM inputs and then use the top half as the content and the bottom half as the mask? Whoa, that's a thought. I don't think you can, though, because, again, there's only one upstream keyer, so you can only move the video feed as a whole. You can't move the mask separately from the video feed. So, like, in order for that to work, you would need to be able to... So this flying key setting, you would need to be able to control the flying key for just the mask separately from the fill. So, like, yeah, I can choose the fill source to be a different input, but I can't move the fill source separately from the mask, the key, if that makes sense. But clever thought. Tim says, still waiting for my ATEM Mini Pro. You've been waiting for a long time. But number 5 on the list is excellent, so you hopefully should get it soon. Good luck with that, I hope. Alex says, what camera are you using? I've been looking for cameras to pass audio so that sync isn't an issue. This is the Lumix, what is it, the G7? I think that's the right one. I have too many of them. This one is the, yeah, Lumix G7, and here I'll drop a link to this. This one I like a lot because it's only $500, including a kit lens, and it has clean HDMI out and a microphone jack. And for $500, like, I don't mind just sort of leaving it here and having this dedicated to be my video streaming camera. Whereas like my GH5S, which I actually use for like, you know, filming stuff elsewhere and not just at my desk, I don't want to leave it on my desk because that seems like a little bit overkill to leave as a permanently installed camera. So yeah, the G7 has been great for this permanent setup on my desk here. John says, how would you rate the stability of the ATEM Mini Pro as a standalone encoder? Is that what you're streaming with right now? Yeah, it is what I'm streaming with right now. I'm actually streaming from the ATEM Mini Pro over the network over the wired network at my house here to YouTube, and it's actually set at streaming. It's at the encoder setting is Hyperdeck medium board. So it's 25 megabits a second, which I'm pushing up to YouTube. And YouTube is loudly yelling at me saying I'm sending them too much data, but they apparently are dealing with it anyway. It's been completely stable. Like, I have not had any problems with the encoder itself. The problems I've had are the network or, yeah, that's it pretty much. Can you record directly from the ATEM Mini Pro to the Hyperdeck Studio over the network? No, the Hyperdeck Studio only accepts video feed over HDMI or SDI. The network interface on the Hyperdeck is just for controlling it. And you can like FTP files out, but it's really slow. So it's, yeah, just over HDMI. Hisham says, could you please share in a document the setup that you have, including lists for all apps and hardware in one place? That is an excellent idea, and I should actually do that. One of the reasons I haven't done that yet is because I've actually been going through a lot of iterations on this setup, and I haven't felt like it's necessarily stable or something I would recommend yet. But I'm getting to the point where this is now a pretty stable situation, and I do actually, yeah, I do actually have like a reasonable amount of things here that I would recommend. So yeah, I will do that. Joseph says, when I said the problems I've had are on the network, it froze for a few seconds. Good timing. That's hilarious. Yeah, my ISP is, it's a CenturyLink, and I have gigabit up and down, and I've measured it, and I've reached about, I would say, 700 to 800 megabits a second on my speed tests. Although lately, in the last week, I've been noticing I've been capping out at around 100 up and down. But 25 is still well under that, so that's why I decided to go with that today. Although I might change my mind on that since YouTube is yelling at me. All right. Where was I in the chat? Can I change the picture-in-picture settings and still use the buttons on the ATEM Mini Pro? Kind of, but not really. So the yeah, the picture-in-picture buttons, like the little four that have the icons in the corner, those are like presets, and they will go in and change the keyer setting in the ATEM. So like you can't change what those buttons do. I've asked Blackmagic to make it so that those can run macros instead, because man, I would love that. But yeah, so those buttons will change the settings. If you do have custom settings set up, like custom keyer settings set up, you can kind of use the picture-in-picture on and off to toggle on and off. I don't find that to be very reliable because I feel like I never can quite be sure what it's about to do. And I'm much more confident using a macro where I know what the macro does, and I know that the macro is going to be like configuring all of the different sources in the right spot and moving all my settings around to do exactly what I want. I'm a lot more comfortable using the macro to do that instead of the buttons on the device. So yeah, I would highly recommend figuring out an external control surface like the Stream Deck or a dedicated like an iPad app, and using macros instead. MetaWolf. Oh yeah, this is a fun one. So MetaWolf says, is it possible to switch between all 4 cameras automatically, for example, every 30 seconds, without pushing the keys? I just want to cycle between all the cameras automatically. So I thought there was not a way to do this, and then I realized that there actually totally is, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to set it up with you all here. So let me switch back over to my my software control. The way to do this is, of course, using macros. So if we go load up the macros, we'll just make a new one, call it looping inputs, hit record. Then, yeah, this should work fine. Let me actually show you the multi-view. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap that. All right, so it's set it to the 1. We're going to add a pause, and let's say it's 30 seconds. Well, let's say it's 3 seconds. Okay. Click this one, add pause, 3 seconds. Click this one, add a 3-second pause, and click that one, and a 3-second pause. I actually don't have anything in the 4th input, so that's going to be boring. Stop recording. We can get rid of that. And now if I go and save this out, save it as, we'll save just the macros. If I save this out and look at what it put in the macros, then this one here is what it recorded. So what it actually recorded was setting, I don't know how that got in there. Program input to camera 1, wait, camera 2, and wait. Then the trick is to play this on a loop. And you can do that if we go back in here, run, you press that button. And then when we do click on that and click run, it's just going to start cycling through all of them. Should be 3 seconds per camera. Yeah. And because it's set to run on loop, it's just going to keep going. So yeah, that's how you do it. Pretty cool. So yeah, thanks for reminding me about that, because I was pretty excited when I realized that there was that loop button. Cool. All right, people are talking about the echo again, but I don't think there's a problem with that. Oh, do I think there will be a 4K firmware update for the ATEM Mini Pro? Firmware update? No, I don't think so. Like, this stuff is baked into the hardware. I guess it wouldn't surprise me if they did launch a 4K ATEM Mini Pro at some point. But definitely not happening in a firmware update. Oh, this was back to our conversation about adding multiple graphics. Yeah, like you can your whatever you're overlaying with the downstream keyer does not have to be just like a single graphic in the corner, because it is taking over the whole screen. So like this one, for example, this is not just a corner graphic, right? Like I've got the little party poppers, emojis and stuff. So yeah, you can put like multiple logos on that. The limit is just that they'll all be visible at the same time. John says, how can I color correct an input for my live broadcast using the Sony A7 series? I've never used the Sony A7 series, I will say. But there is no way to color correct inside the ATEM Mini itself. You have to do all that outside. So some cameras have a way to apply color correction in the camera and feed that out. So like the Blackmagic cinema cameras, I'm pretty sure they can do it. I don't have one, so I never actually used it, but I'm pretty sure they can. The other way to do it is to run your camera into a monitor, like a little 5-inch monitor, and then you can apply a LUT in the monitor, which then will pass out the color corrected signal. I haven't actually done much with color correction and LUTs myself. This is just like straight out of the Lumix camera running into the ATEM Mini. I've got the white balance on it set, but that's about it. Although I actually, now that I think about it, I didn't actually readjust my white balance for this room. But that's about the extent I've done. Nathan says, seems like a Raspberry Pi can make a fine HDMI media player. Yeah, totally. And there's actually someone's working on a program for the Raspberry Pi which emulates a Hyperdeck player. So that basically it can respond. It'll look like a Hyperdeck to the ATEM Mini, so that it can send those commands to load clips and start recording. I'm super excited to try that out. I haven't had a chance yet. It's also in beta, but as soon as it's launched, I will absolutely talk about it here, because that's probably then the best option, because it's such a cheap device, but it also is controllable by the ATEM Mini directly. All right, got the splitter questions. Drew says, are you running your mic audio through a camera right now, or using the line delay hardware you've previously suggested? Actually, right now I'm using a little, can you see it in this shot? I'm using, there it is, this little Movo microphone, and it's just a little 1/8 inch jack running into the camera. So that's why there's no sync issues with the audio. I do like my Samson CO2 mic a lot better, but that's what I use for most of the like edited videos that I do. In order to use that for the live stream, I would need to run that through a delay line, and we'll see if I feel like adding that as my permanent setup. But I kind of like the simplicity of this, just that it's not powered, like there's no battery on it. It's just a little microphone running into the camera, so it's just super easy. So, all right. Oh, where'd my chat go? There we go. If we want to live stream 2 locations and are on the same network via VPN, can I, in theory, control both ATEMs in both locations to pass the stream back and forth? That's a lot to unpack there. So, I think there's two parts to this question. So if you have 2 physical locations and you have a ATEM in both separate locations, but they're on VPN, then you absolutely can control both from the same machine. So that's actually what I've got set up here. This is a separate network from my apartment. They're connected over VPN. I've actually got WireGuard VPN running between the two, making a tunnel between the 2 locations. And so like the IP addresses up here are 10.11. The IP addresses at home are 10.10. And I've got routing tables and stuff configured to connect the 2. So all my machines are accessible across both networks, which means I can just load up the software control app or even the Strata Macros app and just point it at both IP addresses, and it'll send commands to both, no problem, because it doesn't know that it's over a VPN. So yeah, that works totally fine. Separately from that, though, is if your ATEMs are in 2 locations broadcasting to the same feed, how you actually switch back and forth between the 2. That will completely depend on what you're streaming to. YouTube, for example, I'm pretty sure, I think I tried this at one point. I haven't replicated it too much, but I've tested it at least once. If you use the same stream key on a separate ATEM and just start streaming from the other ATEM, it'll like clobber the first one. It just takes over. So you could, in theory, use that to hand off a show from one location to another. You just tell them, all right, we're ready for you to take over. They hit go. The second ATEM starts streaming up with the same stream key. YouTube starts using that one instead, and you drop the first one off. I don't know if it's supposed to work that way. So I don't know how much I would like count on that continuing to work that way, but that does seem to be how it works. The other way to do it would be finding a service like, I don't know if Restream can do this, but it would be something like Restream, where, you know, Restream is normally 1 stream in, multiple out. It would be like multiple in, 1 out. Actually, Livestream Studio can absolutely do this, because Livestream Studio has a way to add an RTMP source or RTMP feed, like URL, as an input. So you can actually have 2 ATEMs pushing to a scene where you can then switch between the 2, and then that's the thing that's actually doing the streaming to YouTube. That'd be a really cool idea. That's actually a really good idea for a show. I should do a show about that. But yeah, great question. Jake says, my ATEM Mini Pro finally shipped from B&H yesterday, ordered April 19th. Congrats. That is a long wait. That is almost 2 whole months. But I'm glad you're getting it. So enjoy soon. Victor says, did you notice discrepancies in color between outputting signal via USB-C versus HDMI out? Yeah, definitely. There's a difference in the color. They use 2 completely different ways of encoding the video feed. So like HDMI is just like, I don't actually know what color profile it uses, but then the USB-C output is in the ATEM Mini, it's actually a JPEG feed. So I think it then also depends on what the computer is doing when it's receiving that. There's a lot of different moving parts here, but they are completely different ways that they output color information. So there is definitely a difference, which is a little bit unfortunate, but there's not really a good way around that. Cool. So, yeah, Chuck says, with the graphics issues with lower thirds and videos, it seems to me it might be better served by using OBS or vMix and the ATEM as your webcam. Yeah, thanks for that. I should have mentioned that as well. At the point that you're starting to look at needing like a lot of animations on demand as as overlays, or a lot of different lower thirds, or different logos and overlays and stuff, or more scaling inputs in more than one way, then yeah, you find the limits of the ATEM pretty quick, and you might in that case be better off doing that work in OBS or any of those software-based switchers, just using the ATEM for your own local feed, bringing that into it. So yeah, that's definitely an option as well. But that of course comes with all the downsides that I dislike about software switching and using computers to do the encoding. I just noticed my background lights change. Thank you. Thank you, Hamish. For the super chat, is it possible to encode on the ATEM, send the stream to Restream caster directly, and then have the USB-C free for recording onto the SSD? Thanks for the super chat. And yeah, so if you're feeding video into your computer over USB-C, then that's all it can do. Like, it's not going to be able to record to a disk at the same time. The USB-C is either a webcam or recording to disk, not both. But if you can stream from the ATEM Mini Pro, like the RTMP encoder, up to Restream or whatever, that frees up the USB-C. So it's not connected to your computer over USB-C, which means the USB-C port is available to record to disk. Absolutely is a good solution. You just need to make sure that the way that the thing that you're pushing into accepts RTMP input, not a webcam input, if that makes sense. Cool. All right, scrolling back up to the chats. Oh yeah, Jake says, have you seen any of the SKAARHOJ? Oh, that's how you pronounce that? I always wondered. For controlling the ATEM, the Airfly Pro looks amazing. I have looked at these a lot. I have never actually held one. They're very cool. They're like hardware control surfaces. I started looking at them a long time ago when I was using like the TV studio, ATEM television studio model for live gigs, and before I found this iPad app. They're very cool devices. They send the control commands directly to the ATEM, and you can often program them to do different things, like running macros or switching inputs themselves. Very cool devices. They're very expensive. They're handmade. They're like amazing. Very expensive, I will say. So yeah, I haven't actually bought one because the between the Stream Deck and the iPad app, that's good enough for me. Robert says, got my ATEM Mini Pro from DVE Store after a month and 3 days. Not bad. You can request an upgrade to express shipping. That is good to know. Good tip. And that'll at least cut a couple days off of the shipping once they get it out their door. How does the ATEM Mini handle sources that use HDCP like Chromecast? I'm trying to remember. I have a Chromecast that I was hoping to use for doing stuff like chat and graphics. And I can't remember now if I was testing it with ATEM Mini or the television studio. Whatever I was testing it with completely did not recognize it at all. It just, not even like the gray fuzz, it just didn't show up as anything. But now I'm not sure if it was ATEM Mini or the television studio that I was testing it with. So I'm gonna have to go back and check because I would love to be able to use the Chromecast as, especially as a way to like have presenters share their slides from Chrome directly into the Chromecast. That would just be such a small setup. I love it. Oh yeah, so apparently I did have a network glitch. After I said the network, I froze for 5 seconds. Well, that's what we get for live streaming. Oh, this is a good point. YouTube has a secondary backup stream key that is used as a failover. So once the main feed drops, the second ATEM feed will take over. That's actually a really good way to, yeah, that's probably the better way to hand off a show from one to another. I assume if the main one comes back, it'll switch back. So that could be a good way to do it. And you know, maybe what we'll do is when I'm ready to wrap up the show today, maybe I will try that. And then if it fails, I'll just be gone and we'll call it at the end. But if it does work, that'd be exciting. So yeah, maybe we'll come back to that. Cool. Is there a way to add more than 20 graphics in the media pool? Nope. You get 20 slots. That's it. The best you could do is, again, using that trick where you're saving the state and like saving an XML file on your computer to load sets of graphics. And you can restore just the graphics without restoring the rest of your settings. So if you needed to like burn through 20 slides, 20 media slots, and then not use them again, and then use a separate set of 20 later, you could load them in chunks. It'd be kind of awkward, but you could do it. Stan says, is there an alternative to the Hyperdeck to play video clips with a one-click button without showing all the playback buttons? I kind of talked about this at the beginning a little bit, but I'll just repeat it again. There's a couple of devices that are good for playing back clips into the ATEM. However, the Hyperdeck is the only one that can be controlled by the ATEM, so everything else is going to be a lot more coordination to get it to work right. But the little Mica spec player, just SD card, HDMI out, it doesn't have overlays, I don't think, when you're playing, like when it starts playing like you would get in like VLC, but it's still not as good as a Hyperdeck. Hyperdeck is really the best option for that. Speaking of the Hyperdeck, does it keep the alpha info when playing through the ATEM, or do you have still to key out the graphics with the ATEM and make your graphic with a green background? So the Hyperdeck is normally used with the higher end switchers over SDI, where it's very normal to use two outputs, like two inputs into the switcher. So you can use, the Hyperdeck has two SDI outputs, and that can output the graphics on one and like a key layer on the other. And then you would bring that into the ATEM Television Studio SDI over two SDI lines. And then in your key settings in the software control, you would choose the two separate inputs. So that doesn't, like, there's no SDI on the ATEM Mini. So you're limited to HDMI solutions. And if you do have two SDI to HDMI converters, you can run two outputs from the Hyperdeck, convert both to HDMI into the ATEM Mini, and then select one as the key and one as the fill. And it does work. You can't run it over HDMI because it gets a little bit off sync. You have to do them both over SDI converting to HDMI. And it does mean that it eats up two inputs on the ATEM Mini. But that's how that works generally, is that you end up using two lines out in order to get the key layer separately from the graphics. Stan says, is it possible to record each cam independently? The ATEM Mini only has one recorder, records the program feed. If you have the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras, the ATEM Mini can tell those cameras to record themselves when you hit the record button on the ATEM Mini, which is the closest you get to recording ISOs on using the ATEM Mini. But there's only one recorder on the Mini itself. Todd says, oh, this was back to our discussion of color correction. There is color correction in the Chroma Key. That is a really good point, which I hadn't considered. I don't know if I would want to use the Chroma Key for that, but you can, in fact, make color adjustments to the video feed in the Chroma Key settings, which is a pretty funny way to do it. All right. Oh yeah, and another one pointing out that the secondary backup server URL. Yeah, it's a backup server URL, not a backup stream key though, so same stream key. All right, we're coming up. I'm almost caught up with chat now. So Serge says, have you found any scripts that can upload images to the media pool? I found a few ATEM JavaScript libraries, but the media pool didn't work. I found at one point I did find a script. I don't remember what language it was in, and I was able to do it, but this was probably 3 or 4 years ago that I last tried this. It should be possible though, because yeah, it's a network protocol. It's documented by Blackmagic. It should be doable. So it'd be very cool. It would be very cool to be able to push graphics to the ATEM on the fly. Renee says there's a software solution for playback called Casper CG, which is able to control the ATEM too. That's a good point. That'd be the other way around. So with the Hyperdeck, the ATEM is controlling the Hyperdeck. This would be the other way around, where Casper is then controlling the ATEM. Yeah, that's cool. That would work too. So, okay, cool. I'm caught up on the chat. So I'm going to try this cutting over from, and we're also a little past the hour. So I'm going to try setting up the ATEM to fall over to the other ATEM, which is going to be either successfully, it'll be either a great demonstration or a horrible failure, and it'll end my stream. Either way is fine with me. So in case this does fall apart into a complete disaster, thank you all for joining. And I really appreciate the questions, and back here same time next week. And yeah, check out my videos. I've got a bunch of tutorials now on this channel. Past live streams, I'm trying to go back and index them so you can find questions in them a little bit easier with the table of contents. I'm going to hopefully do that with this one as well. There's a lot now. There's a ton of information in these, so feel free to go back and take a look at the archives. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I'm doing here, which is, and I have to do this without showing you the stream key as well. So over in the YouTube settings, we've got, you can see it's yelling at me for sending too much data. So I might change my plan in the future. But I've got 2 URLs. So this is what I'm streaming to right now. I'm going to take this backup URL and plug it into the test ATEM. And let me just make sure that I'm not showing my stream key. Okay, so in here, I'm going to choose secondary, which should be the backup URL already programmed into the ATEM. If we take a look at the streaming.xml file, which is the way that this software control app knows what options to show in that list, then we can see that it's got primary and secondary, and that's actually a different URL than what YouTube was telling me. So let's, oh, it's just backup equals 1. Maybe that's just so that it looks better. No, you know, I'm going to do that. I'm going to save that just to make sure that we're actually putting it in the right spot. So cool. And that is now, I have to go restart this. Okay, quit the software control. We're going to relaunch software control. And All right, back. We'll make sure I'm on the right one. Connection on the test ATEM. Going to stream to YouTube. Secondary. We're going to use, yeah, let's switch to streaming high 6 megabits. I'm going to go punch in the stream key without showing it to you, hopefully. And collapse that. All right. And oh, I just saw, I don't know, my background didn't change with that one, but thank you for the super chat. Here's 1 cent for every or you said so far. Thanks. I hope it wasn't that bad, because that's a lot of cents. But thank you very much. And again, I'm going to be matching that donation to these organizations. So thank you very much. Okay. I do say a lot. That's why I edit my videos, so that you don't hear that on the real videos. All right. So here we are. I've got this set up to now live stream to the backup encoder on YouTube. And the multi-view of this ATEM is set to, so there's my multi-view. Let me switch to the main camera. How are we going to know if it worked? I'm going to go into Photoshop and change this graphic, and we're just going to put a big backup stream in the corner. I'm going to use this so that we know that we're on the backup stream. Export to media pool. That's my secondary one. Backup. Put it in slot 5. Pre-multiply alpha. And then let's bring that into there. I probably shouldn't have used black text now that I think about it. Let me just add a little white border. A little white border, there we go. Outside, not that big. How about 20 pixels? Back to stream. Export to the media pool and overwrite slot 5, pre-multiply the alpha. Great, get Photoshop out of the way. Now when so now you can see the program output has that backup stream in the corner. Cool. So now when I hit go, I should be pumping a backup feed with this output into YouTube. So here we go. On air. You can see it's pumping data up to YouTube now. How do I tell in YouTube if I'm getting a backup stream? I've actually never done that before. So we might just have to try by failing over. Yeah, I think we just have to try it. All right. With any luck, in the current configuration, the video's primary and backup streams have different video bit rates. You need to configure the streams to have the same video bit rate. Really? But you were complaining about it before. Let's do what it says. Let's do what it says. Let me not show you my stream key again. Gonna switch to, all right, switch to the bitrate that it doesn't like. Push the backup stream up, and then hopefully it says soon that everything, I guess the warning went away, so that means it worked. Is that what I'm seeing here? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna try it. If I disappear, then thanks for watching. So I'm going to cut. Yeah, I'm going to cut the stream. Oh, it's complaining about it again. I'm pretty sure they have the same bit right now. We're just going to roll with it, see what happens. All right, here we go. Bye. Hopefully it picks up again in a second. And cutting the main encoder Sound. Sound. I totally forgot about sound. That should do it. Yeah. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot the microphone on the secondary encoder. You should be. You should be hearing me now. Yeah, cool. Okay. I just forgot to push. Yeah, I forgot to push the audio on the other one. Cool. Well, that worked. Let me know what the delay was like between the two, though. You probably, I'm guessing it like cut out for a couple seconds, and then flipped over to the other stream. Not bad. Tim says the cutover was instant. I can't show the chat now because I'm on the other encoder. Hearing 3 seconds, 10 seconds, instant. So it probably depends on a lot of things of like where you're joining, where you're watching from, and things like that. So cool. Seamless. Cool. That's awesome. I'm gonna try one more time, switch back to my main one, so that I can actually end the show out properly. But I'm also going to switch to a different bitrate, which is going to make it really unhappy. So let me try that. And what am I showing on the program out there? I'm showing my computer screen. So let me switch back to this. All right. So I'm gonna switch back now by turning on I'm gonna leave the backup encoder running. We're gonna have the main encoder sort of take over the show again. So what you could do with this is plan on the host running the main, like the main host running the primary URL, and then give the secondary URL to your second sites. Again, it's using the same stream key, so you would like make sure you're trusting whoever you're giving this to, because they will be able to take over your primary stream if they wanted to. So, all right, I'm bringing back the main encoder right now, and now I'm on pushing data from the live encoder. We'll see how long it takes until YouTube switches back to it. And I should have had a counter running or a timer or something. So I'm still seeing the backup stream on my preview window here, and I'm wondering if it's going to keep the backup stream running until the backup stream stops. Not sure. Yeah, I'm still seeing the backup stream. So let me just cut the backup stream out now, and we'll see what happens. Backup encoder is offline. So now there should be a slight pause or not, and it should pick back up from the main encoder. There we go. All right. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like that's actually a completely reasonable way to run. You should. There has to be audio on main stream. There's audio. Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. So that means this is a completely reasonable way to run a stream from multiple locations. Yeah, seeing again a wide variety: instant, 2 seconds, 7 seconds, 3 seconds. Yeah, not bad. Oh, Jonas says normally it switches back instantly, but it takes time. Takes its time so that the main is safe. That makes sense. That makes sense. So it wouldn't immediately flip back because it doesn't necessarily trust the main stream yet. But cool. So that's really cool. That's really cool. So yeah, you could definitely run a show from 2 locations this way, or actually any number of locations, as long as you just keep handing them off. Give people the backup URL, and it'll just fail over. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I'm glad that worked and I didn't kill my stream. I'm actually really curious what the playback will be like. I'm guessing it's going to cut out the gap and it'll be a seamless playback. So that's cool. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. I am going to now officially sign out. So thanks for joining, and see you again next week. We'll be back with more questions. Hopefully a few of you will have your ATEM Minis by next week and have had a chance to try things out. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions. Thanks for joining.